Kale had learned to keep his eyes down in the presence of the royal court. It was safer that way, less likely to draw attention, less likely to be singled out for whatever cruel entertainment the nobles found amusing on any given day. But today, keeping his eyes down wouldn't save him. There he is. Lord Vexther's voice boomed across the training courtyard, dripping with mockery. The human who thinks he can compete in the alpha trials. Come, everyone, witness this comedy. Kale felt every eye turn toward him. The gathered Thishan nobility, resplendent in their formal combat attire, their navy blue skin gleaming with precious oils, their silver hair elaborately styled, regarded him with expressions ranging from amusement to outright contempt. He was painfully aware of how he must look to them. His training uniform was plain and functional, lacking the ornamental details that marked status among the Thishans. His brown hair was simply tied back, not woven with metals or gems, and his human frame, though fit and capable, appeared almost fragile next to the Thishans' naturally denser musculature. "My lord," Kale said quietly, bowing with proper protocol, "I've registered according to the trial regulations. My application was accepted." "Regulations written before any human dared apply," Lady Churinel chimed in, her laughter like crystal breaking. "Tell me, little human, do you even understand what the alpha trials are? They're not your species' quaint sporting events. Warriors die in these trials, regularly. I understand the risks, my lady. Do you?" Prince Thalrek stepped forward, the Queen's eldest son and favored competitor for this year's trials. He was massive even for a Thishan, standing nearly 7 feet tall with the kind of build that spoke of a lifetime's dedicated training. "The alpha trials determine who among us is worthy to lead military units, to hold positions of real power in the Empire. They test strength, speed, combat skill, tactical thinking, and the will to dominate." He circled Kale like a predator assessing prey. "Humans have been part of our empire for what, 15 years? Your servants, clerks, technicians, useful enough in your limited capacity, but warriors, leaders," he laughed. "You're a novelty at best, an insult to tradition at worst." Kale said nothing. He'd learned that defending himself only made things worse. The Thishan nobility enjoyed goading him into responses they could mock or punish. "Perhaps we should test him now," suggested Lady Muravan, the Queen's niece. "Save him the embarrassment of failing publicly during the actual trials." "An excellent idea," Vexther agreed. "Human, attend me on the sparring platform. Let's see if you're even qualified to waste our time next week." It wasn't a request. Kale followed Vexther to the raised combat platform, aware that a crowd was gathering. Word had spread quickly. The upstart human was about to be put in his place. Vexther was a decorated officer, a veteran of multiple campaigns and a previous Alpha trial finalist. Kale was a communications technician who'd spent his free time training in secret, using instructional programs and whatever equipment he could access. The outcome was predetermined. "Standard rules," Vexther announced loudly. first to yield or first to be rendered unable to continue. No weapons, hand to hand only. Try not to die too quickly, human. I want the court to enjoy this. They faced each other across the platform. Cale settled into a defensive stance, weight balanced, hands up, breathing controlled. He'd studied Thishan combat extensively, knew their preferred strikes and grappling techniques. Knowing and defending against were different things. Vexther moved first, a lightning-fast jab that Cale barely deflected. The force of the blow sent pain shooting up his forearm. Before he could recover, Vexther followed with a sweep kick that took Cale's legs out from under him. He hit the platform hard, the impact driving air from his lungs. The crowd laughed. "Get up," Vexther commanded. "You registered for the Alpha trials. Show me you're at least minimally competent." Cale rose, resetting his stance. Vexther attacked again, a combination of strikes that forced Cale backward. He managed to block most of them, but two got through, one to his ribs, one to his jaw. His vision blurred momentarily. The bout continued for 3 humiliating minutes. Cale never landed a single strike. He defended adequately enough to avoid serious injury, but he never threatened Vexther even slightly. Finally, a palm strike to his chest sent him sprawling off the platform entirely. He landed in the dirt at the noble's feet. "Pathetic," Vexther declared from above. "This is what humans offer, barely adequate defense and no offense whatsoever." He addressed the crowd. "I formally call for the trial council to reject this human's application. He's not qualified to compete." "Seconded," several voices called out. Cale pushed himself to his knees, tasting blood from a split lip. Through the crowd of elegant Thishans, he saw one figure who wasn't laughing, Princess Lyradesh, the queen's youngest daughter. Her golden eyes met his with something that might have been sympathy or perhaps just curiosity. "The human may speak in his own defense," she said quietly, her voice somehow cutting through the mockery. "Tradition requires it." Vexther snorted. What defense could he possibly offer? Cale got to his feet, ignoring the pain radiating from half a dozen impact points. He met Vexther's eyes, then looked at Prince Thalrex, then at the assembled nobility. "I offer no defense of my current skill level," he said clearly. "You're right, I'm not as strong or as fast as Thishan warriors. I've had only 2 years of serious combat training compared to your lifetimes. Lord Vexther defeated me easily as anyone present could have." "Then you concede you're unqualified," Thalrex demanded. "No, Your Highness. I concede that I'm currently outmatched in direct combat." "But the Alpha trials test more than just fighting ability, don't they? They test tactical thinking, problem solving under pressure, leadership potential and adaptability." Cale straightened, wincing slightly. "Human military history is full of victories won not by the strongest warriors, but by the smartest strategists. I may not be the best fighter in the trials, but I might be the best thinker." The crowd's laughter grew louder. "Bold words from someone who just ate dirt," Vexther said. "But fine. Let the human embarrass himself publicly. It will make the trials more entertaining." The Alpha trials began 1 week later with 64 competitors, the finest young warriors from across the Thician Empire. They gathered in the Grand Arena, a massive structure that could reconfigure itself to create any combat environment imaginable. Kale stood among them, painfully aware that he was the smallest, the weakest, the most obviously out of place. The other competitors ignored him entirely, treating him as if he'd already been eliminated. Queen Velshara herself presided over the opening ceremony, her presence commanding absolute attention. "Warriors," she announced from the royal platform, "you have come to prove yourselves worthy of the Alpha designation. Over the next 3 days, you will face 5 challenges designed to test every aspect of leadership and combat capability. Only one will emerge as Alpha Supreme. The rest will learn where they truly stand." Her golden eyes swept across the assembled competitors and paused just briefly on Kale. He couldn't read her expression. "Let the trials begin." Trial 1. The gauntlet the arena reconfigured into a treacherous obstacle course, climbing walls, balance beams over pits, sections filled with various hazards. But unlike a simple athletic challenge, this gauntlet was actively opposed. Automated defense systems fired stun rounds, force fields activated randomly, and sections of the course shifted unexpectedly. The goal was simple: complete the course. The measure of success was time. The Thician competitors attacked the gauntlet with raw physical prowess, using strength and speed to power through obstacles. Most succeeded, though several were stunned badly enough to be removed from competition. Prince Thalrex completed it in an impressive 8 minutes, using his superior strength to simply smash through certain obstacles rather than navigate around them. When Kale's turn came, the crowd's interest was minimal. Most expected him to fail within the first section. He surprised them by taking his time. Where the Thicians had rushed forward, Kale paused at the entrance, observing. He watched the pattern of the stun turrets, noticed the timing of the force field activations, identified which sections of floor were stable and which shifted. Then he moved, not with the raw speed of Thician warriors, but with precision and efficiency. He didn't fight the gauntlet. He read it, adapted to it, used its own patterns against itself. When a force field activated, he was already past it. When stun turrets fired, he'd positioned himself behind cover. When the floor shifted, he'd anticipated the change and moved accordingly. His time was 12 minutes slower than the top Thician competitors, but he completed it without taking a single hit. Every other competitor had been stunned at least once. "Adequate," Lord Vexther announced dismissively. "The human can follow patterns. How clever." But Princess Lyraesh, watching from the royal box, leaned forward with interest. Trial 2, Combat Trials. The second trial was direct combat, one-on-one matches to eliminate half the remaining field. Victory required forcing a yield or incapacitation. Kale knew he couldn't win through strength, so he didn't try. His first opponent was a warrior named Kethryn, a powerful fighter who relied on overwhelming force. Kale absorbed the initial assault, defending desperately while studying his opponent's patterns. Catherine favored his right side. His combinations were powerful but predictable, and he got frustrated when attacks didn't land cleanly. Kale gave ground steadily, making Catherine chase him around the platform. The Thician's strikes grew wilder, less controlled. He was stronger and faster, but he was also expending enormous energy trying to land a finishing blow. After 3 minutes, Catherine was breathing hard. After 5, his strikes were noticeably slower. That's when Kale struck. Not a powerful blow, he didn't have that kind of strength, but a precise one to the exact nerve cluster on Catherine's overextended right arm. The warrior's hand went numb, dropping his guard for a fraction of a second. Kale swept his legs and controlled his fall, ending with Catherine on the ground and Kale's knee on his throat. "Yield," Kale said quietly. Catherine stared up at him in shock, then tapped the platform in submission. The arena was silent. "Lucky strike," someone muttered, but the voice lacked conviction. Kale won his second match similarly, not through power but through pattern recognition and exploitation. By his third match, the other competitors were watching him carefully, reassessing. He lost his fourth match to a fighter who'd studied his tactics and adapted, but he'd already won enough to advance to the next trial. Prince Thalrex, undefeated in his matches, studied Kale with new interest. The human has some skill after all. How unexpected. Trial 3. The tactical challenge, the third trial, tested strategic thinking. Competitors were given command of simulated military units and faced a complex scenario, defending a colony against a superior attacking force with limited resources. This was where Kale truly excelled. While the Thician competitors relied on conventional tactics, direct confrontation, strength of arms, traditional defensive positions, Kale approached the problem differently. He used asymmetric warfare, guerrilla tactics. He traded space for time, sacrificed undefendable positions to preserve forces, and struck at supply lines rather than engaging the main enemy force directly. Where Thician warriors sought glorious victory, Kale aimed for survival and strategic exhaustion of enemy resources. His simulation ran longer than any other, 6 hours compared to the average 90 minutes. But when it ended, his colony had survived with minimal casualties while the attacking force had retreated, their supply lines disrupted and their forces fragmented. The trial judges reviewed his performance in stunned silence. "Unconventional," Queen Velshara observed from her throne, "but effective." "It's not honorable warfare," Vexther protested. "Hit-and-run tactics, avoiding direct confrontation. Winning is honorable," the Queen interrupted. "Whether achieved through glorious battle or through superior strategy, the human understood the objective, survival, and achieved it brilliantly." Kale's scores for the tactical trial were the highest of all competitors. The arena's atmosphere shifted. The human was no longer a joke. He was a threat. Trial 4. The endurance test. The fourth trial was brutal. A 48-hour event combining combat, survival challenges, and constant physical stress. Competitors were placed in a simulated hostile environment and forced to navigate to an extraction point while facing automated opponents and environmental hazards. Food and water were limited. Rest was nearly impossible. The trial was designed to break competitors psychologically as much as physically. Kale knew he couldn't match Thishan's physical endurance, but he understood something about humans that the Thishans didn't. Humans were persistence hunters. For hundreds of thousands of years, human ancestors had hunted prey not by being faster or stronger, but by being more stubborn, by refusing to quit, by continuing when any reasonable creature would stop. Kale didn't try to be fast. He maintained a steady, sustainable pace. When other competitors sprinted and then had to rest, Kale kept moving. When they engaged every opponent, Kale evaded when possible and fought only when necessary. He rationed his supplies carefully. He found rest in brief moments rather than waiting for long breaks. He ignored pain and discomfort and simply continued moving forward. By hour 36, several competitors had withdrawn, unable to continue. Prince Thalrex was still in the lead, but his pace had slowed noticeably. By hour 42, only 5 competitors remained active. Kale crossed the extraction point at hour 47, 1 hour before the deadline. He was battered, exhausted, and could barely stand. But he'd finished third overall, behind only Thalrex and one other elite warrior. When they pulled him from the simulation, he collapsed immediately. Medical staff rushed to attend him. Princess Lyraesh appeared beside the medical platform, looking down at him with undisguised fascination. "You should have quit," she said quietly. "Your body was failing. Why didn't you stop?" Kale managed a weak smile through his exhaustion. "Because humans don't know how to quit, Your Highness. It's our greatest weakness and our greatest strength." Trial 5. The final challenge, the 5th and final trial, was announced the next morning. The 4 remaining competitors, Prince Thalrex, Kale, and 2 elite warriors named Sharvan and Vexnal, would face a combined challenge. They would command actual soldiers in a real-time combat exercise against each other. "Each of you will lead a squad of 10 warriors," Queen Velshara announced. "Your objective is to capture and hold the central fortress in the arena. You will face each other simultaneously. This is not a tournament bracket. The last commander standing wins." Kale's heart sank. Direct military command against superior forces. This played entirely to Thishan's strengths, but he'd come too far to quit now. Each competitor was given time to meet with their assigned squads. Kale faced his 10 Thishan warriors, all of them clearly unhappy about being commanded by a human. "I know what you're thinking," Kale told them bluntly. "You'd rather be following the prince or one of the established warriors. I don't blame you, but like it or not, I'm your commander for this trial, and I intend to win." "How?" one warrior asked skeptically. "You're not strong enough to lead from the front. You're not experienced enough to match the prince's tactical knowledge. What do you offer?" "Something the other commanders don't have," Kale said. the element of surprise. They expect certain behaviors, certain tactics. We're going to give them something completely different. He spent the next hour explaining his plan. His squad listened with growing interest, then growing excitement. "That's insane," one warrior finally said. "Yes," Kale agreed. "But is it insane enough to work?" The final trial began at dawn. The arena had been configured as a fortress complex, a central building surrounded by defensive positions with multiple approach routes and tactical choke points. Prince Thalrex deployed his forces aggressively, seizing the high ground and establishing a strong defensive position. Sharvan and Vexnal did similarly, each taking strategic locations. Kale's squad didn't appear on the battlefield at all. "Where is the human?" Thalrex demanded, scanning the arena through his command display. His question was answered when smoke grenades detonated simultaneously at all three competitors' positions. Not standard smoke, a chemical mixture Kale had requested from the trial equipment stores, one that interfered with Thishan thermal vision. Blind and confused, Thalrex's forces fell back to defensive positions, as did the other squads. That's when Kale struck, not at the prince but at Vexnal's squad. His warriors emerged from unexpected angles. They'd used maintenance tunnels beneath the arena, paths marked for staff, but never considered tactical routes by competitors focused on above-ground warfare. Vexnal's squad, already disoriented by the smoke and expecting attack from ground level, was completely unprepared for assault from below. Kale's forces eliminated half of them in the first minute. Vexnal himself fell shortly after, stunned by a coordinated strike. First competitor eliminated. Kale's squad disappeared back into the tunnels before Thalrex or Sharvan could respond. "Clever," the prince admitted grudgingly. "But tricks won't win this. Find them." But Kale wasn't finished with tricks. While Thalrex and Sharvan focused on finding his squad, Kale's warriors were repositioning through the tunnel network. They emerged behind Sharvan's forces, who were spread thin searching for the human squad. Another quick strike. Another elimination. Now it was just Kale versus Prince Thalrex. The prince pulled his forces back to a single, heavily defended position, the central fortress. He'd learned from the previous attacks and now covered all approach routes, including the tunnels. "Come out, human," Thalrex called across the arena. "Face me directly. No more hiding, no more tricks, just combat." Kale considered his options. Thalrex's position was nearly impregnable. His warriors were better trained, more experienced. In a direct assault, Kale's squad would be destroyed. So Kale didn't assault. Instead, his squad surrounded the fortress at maximum distance and simply waited. "What are they doing?" observers in the royal box murmured. An hour passed, then two. Thalrex's warriors maintained their defensive positions, ready for an attack that never came. "This is ridiculous," Vexther complained from the viewing stands. "The human is stalling." "No," Princess Lyraesh said thoughtfully. "He's winning." She was right. The trial rules stated that the last commander holding the central fortress won. but only if they could maintain their position until the end of the trial period, which was 6 hours total. Thalrex had seized the fortress early, assuming quick elimination of competitors. But by avoiding direct confrontation, Kale had stretched the timeline, and Thalrex's forces, maintaining combat readiness in full defensive posture, were exhausting themselves. In Hour 4, Kale's squad began probing attacks, not serious assaults, just enough to keep Thalrex's forces alert and unable to rest. In Hour 5, the prince's warriors were visibly fatigued. With 30 minutes remaining, Kale finally attacked. His exhausted squad faced Thalrex's exhausted warriors, but Kale's forces had been rotating rest periods and conserving energy. The princes had been at maximum alertness for 5 straight hours. The battle was intense but brief. Kale's warriors had just enough advantage to break through the weakened defense. Thalrex himself faced Kale in the fortress's central chamber. "You can't defeat me in single combat," the prince said, breathing hard but still formidable. "We both know it." "I don't need to defeat you," Kale replied. "I just need to outlast you." They fought. Thalrex was stronger, faster, more skilled, but he was also exhausted from 5 hours of high-stress command. His strikes, while powerful, were slower than they should have been. Kale defended desperately, giving ground, absorbing impacts. He didn't try to win just to survive. The trial timer counted down, 5 minutes, 4-3. Thalrex drove Kale back against a wall, his hand at the human's throat. "Yield." "No," Kale gasped. 2 minutes. "Yield." The prince's grip tightened. "No." 1 minute. Thalrex drew back his fist for a finishing strike and hesitated. If he knocked Kale unconscious now, would that count as incapacitation before the timer expired? Would the trial judges rule that Kale had held the fortress successfully? The hesitation was fatal. The timer reached 0. Trial concluded. The announcement echoed through the arena. Final positions: Commander Kale, Fortress Central Chamber. Commander Thalrex, Fortress Central Chamber. Ruling: Kale's forces held numerical superiority at trial conclusion. Victory: Commander Kale. The arena fell silent. Thalrex released Kale and stepped back, his expression a mixture of shock, frustration, and something that might have been respect. "You didn't fight like a warrior," he said quietly. "No," Kale agreed, still catching his breath. "I fought like a human. We don't win by being strongest. We win by refusing to lose." The coronation ceremony that evening was surreal. Queen Velshara herself placed the Alpha designation on Kale's uniform, an honor that carried with it command authority, political standing, and respect throughout the Thishan Empire. The same nobles who'd mocked him a week ago now offered congratulations, their smiles forced and their eyes calculating. Lord Vexther was notably absent. Prince Thalrex approached him after the ceremony, his expression unreadable. "I underestimated you," he said simply. "I won't make that mistake again." "Your Highness, you're still a better warrior than I'll ever be, but you're the better strategist, and perhaps that matters more than I was willing to admit." He extended his hand in the human gesture of respect. "Well fought, Alpha Kale." Kale shook his hand, still somewhat overwhelmed by the turn his life had taken. Princess Lyraesh found him later on a balcony overlooking the city. "You knew from the beginning, didn't you?" she asked. "That you couldn't beat them at their own game." "Yes, Your Highness." "So you changed the game entirely. Very human of you," she smiled. "My mother was right to allow your application. You've taught the court an important lesson." "What's that?" "That power comes in many forms. Strength and skill matter, certainly. But adaptability, creativity, and sheer stubborn refusal to quit matter too." She looked out over the city lights. "The empire has relied too long on traditional thinking. Perhaps having a human alpha will force us to reconsider what we value in our leaders." Kale thought about the journey that had brought him here, from humiliated technician to alpha warrior, from court joke to respected commander. "I just wanted to prove I belonged," he said quietly. "You proved far more than that," Lyraesh replied. "You proved that belonging isn't about matching everyone else's strengths. It's about bringing your own unique value to the table and refusing to be dismissed." She was right, Kale realized. The court had humiliated him because he was different, weaker by their standards, unworthy of respect. But the Alpha trials had revealed a truth the Thishan nobility hadn't wanted to see, that human persistence, creativity, and refusal to accept defeat could match or exceed traditional warrior strength. They'd rejected him because he wasn't like them. He'd won by being exactly what he was, human. And in doing so, he'd changed the Thishan Empire's understanding of power itself. The court would never humiliate him again, not because he'd become like them, but because he'd proven he didn't need to.